If you're thinking about breast implant surgery, I often get the question, hey, do I need a high profile breast implant? And what exactly does that mean anyway? So interestingly, breast implants, of course, come in many different sizes for many different body frames and patient goals. Here are some examples of silicone gel breast implants. Now, I've got these lined up because you might be able to see this one is what I would call the shortest one. This one is a little bit taller, and you can probably tell that this one's kind of obviously the tallest one. I'm not really a fan of the terms low profile, high profile. I think it's all very confusing because really, when we're taking inventory of, say, your anatomy, and I'm deciding what type of implant might best fit you, I'm actually more considering the width of your breast, how wide your breast is. And so if you put an implant in that's way too narrow and you put it in on a wide person, then what you end up with is a tiny little tennis ball kind of floating around on the person. It doesn't really look like a breast. It doesn't look very natural. On the other hand, if you take a little skinny person, you put in an implant that's way too wide, then you end up with an implant that's sort of hanging over into her armpit. That doesn't really work either. So back to, what does high profile mean? Well, this is lower. This is a little bit taller. We call that moderate profile or mid profile. And then the real tall ones, we decided to call high profile. When I say we, I really mean the breast implant manufacturers. And I think this got a little confusing for people because me as a surgeon, I'm really not choosing how tall I want your implant to be as much as I'm choosing how wide your implant needs to be to fit you, to fit your chest. So you don't have the tiny little tennis ball floating around, and you also don't have the big wide thing hanging over into your armpit. And so if you'll notice, these get taller, taller, taller. And I do ask people, hey, which one do you think is bigger? And I get all sorts of answers. So the answer to the trick question is, these are all the same volume. Okay, but when you take an implant that is wider and you make it narrower, look what happens. Now it gets what? Taller. So that's why they call them high profile. But really, the difference between this implant and this implant isn't volume because they're the same size. The difference is this one is narrower, so it looks taller. And if you put it inside a patient, it projects more. That's why they call it high profile, even though really it's just a narrower implant. So this is why when people come in and they say, oh, my friend had high profile implants, I like how they look, that's what I want. Well, it doesn't really always work that way because their friend may have a very wide breast and you may have a very narrow breast, or vice versa. And again, you don't want to be the girl with a wide breast and the tiny little tennis ball floating around that doesn't really fit you. So just like clothing, when you buy clothing, you want to buy something that's appropriate width for you, right? The right measurements. You want the breast implant that is also the right measurements. And that is why you come to somebody like me who's been doing breast surgery since forever. I did my first breast surgery in 1996, and I know how to do this even probably without measuring you, although sometimes I measure just for the heck of it. But we like to fit your measurements and the appropriate width for your breast. We don't choose high profile just because it's a buzzword or it's well marketed or your friend had it. We choose the implant that best fits you, but we don't just choose a high or low profile just for the sake of it or because someone requests it per se. So I kind of had a good idea. I've been doing this long enough to know how to adjust and which one to choose which one of these to choose to best meet your goals. And that's why when you come in for your consult, we'll talk more about your goals. And then we'll decide whether it ends up being something like this or something like this, or maybe even something in the middle.